Howdy, friend, and welcome to the Bonsai Pot-cast. I'm your host, Tori Solis of Blue Nose Trading, and today I'm going to be chatting with Matthew of 42 Mice. Unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, a lot of our conversation was lost, but what we did manage to salvage was pretty fantastic, so I hope you guys enjoy. Hey guys, how are you today?
Hey, Tori, we're good.
Oh, it's tea, matcha, it's like green tea.
Ah,
It's a type of, I think it's from Japan.
yeah. Cole was thinking you meant mocha, chocolate coffee.
Oh, like chocolate. Those are good too. So, Mouse, how did you start in ceramics?
I played around at school and I got kicked out of art for it. And so I played around in my garden shed in my teens. And my first attempt at firing was in the flue of our wood-fired barbecue. And it had a crack through the chimney for the next 30 years until it was pulled down.
Did you keep firing it with a crack?
No, well, the pot exploded, the barbecue carried the crack. I was just trying to do anything it would do.
Oh dear.
I suppose being a self-taught idiot, you kind of have to try a lot and stuff a lot up. Life gets in the way, and I came back to it in 2010. I actually went to another Australian potter to commission a piece. And she sort of said to me, I can't make that for you.
I understand.
I'm like, well, why not? And she's like, because it's not me. It's not my style. And shoved a piece of clay in my hands and said, you've got to make it yourself. 13 years on, nearly 14 years on, I still haven't made that pot. I'll get around to it. I've come close. We're in a situation. No. We're in a situation at the moment. We don't have kilns. The last attempt came pretty close. It was my kiln was tiny, 9 inches in diameter, 7 inches in height, only fired to cone 6. So I tend to prefer going to cone 10. I know you guys in America in particular, you talk about cone 6 being stoneware. To us, we call it mid-fire.
I mean, we use that word here too. It's mid-fire. I'm mid-fire.
Yeah.
So what was that pot that you wanted? What did it look like?
A single pot filling a kiln. Pentagonal, cut corner, so indented corners, panelled. So each face had a picture frame. Very formal, very traditional in a lot of ways, but crisp. I want crisp, sharp edges.
Uh-huh.
It's a potter's no-no. Crisp, sharp edges, because they get chipped, they get cracked.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. I do a lot of no-nos.
Oh, so do we. I went crazy. I was just mucking around and I just wanted to make things little. So under 2 inches, preferably under an inch.
Uh-huh.
And that led me to, I suppose, my main method, which is carving. So I start with a solid block.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah. The Japanese term is kuranuki, but it's kind of a weird one because it actually talks about hollowing a form. Is its direct definition, if I remember correctly. I tend to use carving in that way, but also completely, so giving me an outside form and an inside form. I laugh because lots of people ask how you do it, and it's like, well, simple, just remove what you don't need.
Oh my goodness, I love that. My uncle used to say that. He would carve these little figures out of wood, and I'd be like, how do you do that? He's like, I just take everything out that isn't a horse.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? But I get you. I get you. That's awesome. How did you decide to do that? Did you just have a ball of clay and just decide to carve it one day and see what?
As I say, I started out wanting to make little stuff. So I collect miniatures and anything over 1 inch. Anything over an inch needs to be really exceptional to add to my personal collection. So
Do you keep your own pots?
I try not to. Colin.
I do. I have a nice collection.
You do?
Yeah, and
I bet.
he plays veto. So when the kiln's opened and everything comes out, he gets first pick, and I'm not allowed to argue.
That's how my husband is.
Okay.
He's like, I'm keeping this one. I'm like, I need to sell that. He's like, and that's mine now. I'm like, oh, I guess I'll make another one.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a collaboration or something.
Yeah, it's funny. Cole is I said to him, he's the bringer of underwear.
Well, how's that?
So he couldn't miss the podcast.
Just in case you needed some fresh undies?
Because he's part of it. Without Colin, I probably wouldn't have eventually, I would have eventually got there. It only took me 4 years to build my first kiln. I had greenware stacking up in the shed, in my bedroom, my desk, on the shelves above my desk, for 4 years. He likes fire. So I got cranky, he got cranky, and we built our first kiln.
And it's a wood kiln, right?
The first one was, yeah. We called it a hole in the ground.
Oh, so it's like a pit fire.
No, not quite a pit fire. So if you can imagine a mini anagama.
Okay.
So the whole thing, firing box, wear chamber, tatama, and flue was 7 feet
Okay.
long. So the wear chamber was 36 inches long, 18 inches wide, 16 inches high. We eventually, with practice, we had one that we lived on the edge of a little country town, and I'd gone up to the shop, and I walked out of the shop, and I went, oh dear, Colin's just stoked the fire. I don't think the kiln ever got out of reduction.
Oh.
We have a couple of pots from that which are just phenomenal. The amount of trapped carbon, and once it gets to sort of 1300, it's almost metallic.
Yes, I've seen that. I think it's awesome looking when it does that.
Yeah.
Unless you're not trying to do that, and then you're like.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know what we were doing. We just made it up as we went along.
That's the best way.
Half the fun. The best firing in terms of temperature. So coal is brilliant at control.
Mm-hmm.
When we have gas kilns, he fires them start to finish.
How long does your firing take?
The shortest wood firing was 13 hours.
Oof.
The longest was 27 hours.
Oh my goodness.
With our first gas kiln, we could do stoneware 1300 in 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually went through a stage there where we were doing rolling firing with a 24-hour turnaround to just pack, fire, unload, pack, fire, unload, 24 hours from start to start again.
Dang, that's a lot of firing. When are you firing next? Are you still working on stuff? I know you said you took a break and you're just getting back into it. Have you started making again yet?
I have the clay. I have the plan. I'll have studio and kiln access from the middle of September. Yeah, so it's going to be limited. It's only 1 day a week, and it's a 4-hour round trip.
Oh, man. So basically, you just need to be making at your living room and then box it all up real nice and drive it over to fire, basically, huh?
No, I can't fire there either. I can't make anything at home and take it to fire.
Why? Is that just their studio rules?
Complicated. Yeah. There is a place 15 minutes from here where I used to do quite a lot of electric fire. She used to do all my electric firing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot of people are not as comfortable with the experimenting as what I'm prone to do.
I understand that. They're like, not in my kiln with your weird pots.
That's the one. Exactly. Yeah, I wasn't allowed to do anything with manganese dioxide.
Why?
Do you know the toxicity of that stuff?
I feel like it's kind of overrated as long as you're venting your kiln.
Yeah, pretty much. I suppose I look at it, it's like when we were building the first wood kiln and I went to pick up some fiberboard for it.
Uh-huh.
And the guy goes to me in the warehouse, he goes, oh, be really, really careful. This stuff's really, really toxic. It's cancer causing, blah, blah, blah. And I looked at him and I went, I'm a potter. We play with silicaceous material every day of the week. Everything we touch and do can cause cancer. Like,
You don't even have to be a potter. Just existing in modern society, it feels like almost everything that you touch or do can cause cancer.
Yeah, you really shouldn't drink that coffee. The amount of radiation from it is off the chart.
Look, I'm drinking this radiated coffee. It's actually matcha though. It's tea.
Yeah. That's even worse for you. The amount of caffeine. My God. So it's past bedtime, so I had to have caffeine with like 9 o'clock to keep me going through this.
So what? I've heard you've been keeping trees for like 40 years.
Yeah, pretty much. I dug my first tree out of Mum and Dad's garden in 1983, 4. Planted my first trees in Mum's garden. I didn't know what it was at that stage, so I was obsessed with herbs and building a herb garden. And I came across an obscure text about Indian Vedics. Yeah, well, the Indian Vedics keep potted specimens of herbal trees so that because it grows thousands of miles away and they need fresh bark or fresh root or a fresh leaf from this tree for treatment. And when you look at the history of growing potted plants, you've got things like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
There it is known that the Egyptians moved mature trees and palms way back, 2000 BC. The Chinese talk about being the founders of it. No, this knowledge has passed along the Silk Route back and forth for millennia. We're just the latest who think we're doing something new. And the secret is knowing that you know nothing, because then you can really have fun with it and you're not tied to anybody else's concept.
Oh, for sure. I hope I always know that I know nothing.
That's me. I'm the know nothing bum.
I love that.
So I discovered bonsai. I discovered bonsai in 1986. First show. My mum was finding things to keep me occupied, and met one of the grandmothers of Australian bonsai as a 12-year-old kid, and she sort of grabbed me by the hand and went, "Is this your first show?" And I'm like, "Yes."
That's awesome.
And she looked at my dad and she goes, "Now, secret for you, Dad. There's a demonstration going on out there, but if you sit in the back rows, nobody will notice if you sleep." So Dad was always one to volunteer to take me for bonsai shows, and
Did he sleep?
yes. My dad worked really bloody hard. We rarely saw him as kids. And when we did, it was dinner or dad's sleeping, don't wake him. So to have those moments, those times, I feel very lucky because I got to spend those times with my dad without, my brother and sisters or mum or anybody else. So he sort of, and he
Yeah.
doesn't understand it to this day. My dad can prune a single twig and a tree will die. I can take a chainsaw to a tree and and pull it out of the ground and chainsaw off the roots and still have it live and grow. So it's kind of fun like that. Used to be fun stirring that up.
I've never chainsawed. I get nervous about doing too much damage. I gotta get past that.
Yeah, you've spoken to hubby's stalker and one of my biggest fans. I'm not sure if that's a compliment though. And
Yeah.
he's horrified, and most people are horrified when they see me work. Even people with, similar experience in terms of time playing with trees, can be a little surprised with how brutal I can get. If you're trying to emulate somebody else's work, well, you may as well just go and buy their work.
Yes.
Don't copy. Be yourself. Do yourself, even if everybody looks at you and goes, "What the hell?"
I agree 100%.
I still get a lot of "what the hell," and it can take time.
Mm.
It's funny. People think bonsai is all about patience. The reality is most of us have very little. So we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of trees.
That's what I was thinking.
So that Well, we can't work on that one because it needs a year or 5 years or 10 years or so we go off and we get another tree and we work on that while that one's resting, we get another and another and
The only thing is watering all of them.
yeah, Cole is the master keeper of the tree.
Oh,
He's very good at that day-to-day maintenance, and he keeps me on my toes and tells me when things need attention or he thinks something,
that's awesome. Y'all seem like you make a really, really great team.
that day-to-day contact is absolutely essential. 10 years, I couldn't get rid of him. I'd be lost without him, and I hope that it goes the same way. I suppose it flows into the pots, and you'd know as a potter yourself, if you have a day off or a week off or you get out of that routine and you lose that touch, you find your work sort of I know for myself, when I get back into the studio in a couple of weeks' time, the first dozen pots I'll probably smash before they actually get to dryware.
You said 1,000?
It's part of the fun for me.
Did you say 1,000? You're gonna smash the first 1,000?
Couple of hundred.
Okay, 100, not 1,000. I couldn't imagine making 1,000 pots to smash.
No. And I'm happy with 1 in 4. So from starting a piece to fully fired it and finished and acceptable, I'm happy with that. I suppose 25%, 1 in 4 success rate. When I've been I suppose, in constant daily working mode, and it's usually only an hour or 2 a day, working down my processes. Even for myself, I can look at that work and I can look at individual pieces and go, I don't need to look at the numbering or the way it was signed. Just by the look and the feel of the pot itself, I know that was a time when I was working daily. That's when I had my hands on clay every day, and it becomes automatic. And your quality, the fineness of your work, things all just fall into sync. I'm hoping for that this time round. I'm going in all guns blazing. I have 30 kilos of clay that I've just bought.
Uh-huh.
I don't often use white except as an accent clay. The 30 kilos and probably around about 30 grams of cobalt oxide.
Are you gonna make more like that one that you showed me?
Maybe it may only end up the initial block, the finished result when it sort of, it reminds me of the original DNA test, sequencing test, where you'd end up with these sort of blue bands and lines. Because of my processes, I only get 1 attempt.
What do you mean, 1 attempt to get the glaze right?
Because all of that clay that, no, well, even just to get, so with something like that, it's a very definite pattern. But I have to make a whole block to do that. So if I stuff up in the carving, my pattern degrades. I don't know if you've ever played with staining clay or anything, or using the cut wedge method.
A little bit.
And they talk about if you cut and fold something enough times.
Yes.
Yeah, well, if you cut and fold something enough times, it ends up a homogeneous whole. I have found through my processes that by the time everything that's carved out of a block in making the first piece is recombined to make the second piece, and then the third and fourth, so on. And I find by the time I'm reaching about the 7th recombination, we're reaching an almost homogeneous state. It's not, but you need to magnify. You need to really look closely to actually see the stratum, see the breakdown of the individual bodies. And some of my mixes, the blue and white's quite simple. The DNA set is quite simple. It's white clay with cobalt oxide. Some of the most complex has been a total of 13 different clays, but they've come from a half a dozen different Nerikomi combinations. And then they're recombined and reimagined and mixed and remixed. And I then take all of my dry excess, and I might throw more oxide at it again of different kinds and really play around. I suppose what I'm aiming for, my real inspiration with my bodies would be granites and marbles and that sort of trying to recreate the look of stone and the complexities that come with that. The potter who got me started was, she's actually an industrial chemist, and she was back in the 70s. And she does so many glaze tests, it's not funny. And I played around that first firing with a lot of her glazes and went, I don't want to make glazed work. And she's like, no, but you have to glaze pots. I'm like, no, I don't. Take a look around at how many bonsai pots are not glazed. I don't have to make glazed pots.
You don't have to do anything.
It took from 2010, it took until 2022 for me to make another glazed pot. I made 2, only 1 survived firing.
Oh, man.
And I don't plan on making any more glazed work, but I'm going to be working in collaboration with another Aussie potter who, she's a phenomenal potter in her own right, Tracy Francis. Has a lot of the technical knowledge combined with probably close to 30 years or maybe even more by now of actual practical experience as a potter. So I'll be making work, disc firing it, and then sending it to her with complete carte blanche, glaze it how you like. There still won't be a lot of pots, and it won't be every pot. It'll be when a pot passes my hand, comes out of my hands, and it's like, this needs colour. That's when it will go to Tracy. They'll be dual stamped so that there needs to be more recognition. I don't know how the shows work in America, or if you know of the original Ginkgo Awards and then Nolander's Trophy in Europe, but I like the way the Europeans do it. We have an open that's started here on the central coast of New South Wales. Our difficulties here in Australia, I mean, you guys in America are the same. You've got great distance east coast to west coast, but you don't have the import-export issues that we have even with our own country. So the guys on the west coast, they could send their trees over to, say, the National Collection in Canberra on the east coast, but those trees then can't go back to West Australia.
And that's all we have today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you'd like to check out Matt's work, you can find him on Instagram at 42_mice. That's Instagram at FORTYTWO_MICE. You can find all those links also in the show notes. This podcast is sponsored by Blue Nose Trading and all of my patrons. If you'd like to get early access to all of the current podcast episodes and early access to a bunch of other stuff that I'm working on, you can become a supporter of this podcast and my work at patreon.com/BlueNoseTrading. Thank you so much for being here, you guys. Remember that you have really great ideas that are worth pursuing. Drink lots of water, and I'll see you on the next episode with another great artist.